Well done, Claire and Catherine and the team. Our culture is made stronger thanks to our rich diversity and the different perspective that brings to our clients on any job. Our guest speaker this afternoon is an expert in intergenerational diversity. She has a fantastic CV. She's here to bust some myths, and she'll also share some insights into maximising the engagement, collaboration and productivity of a multi-generational workforce. Now, Henry works with top companies in their field such as Cisco, Legal & General and Capita, as well as being an in-demand keynote speaker. She's an author, she's a founder and CEO, an entrepreneur, a scriptwriter, a voiceover artist, and you will definitely have seen her in some movies. Please welcome to the stage, Henry Rose-Lee.
Thank you very much. What I love about Colliers, apart from really enjoying all of the videos, brilliant, and all of the presentations so far this afternoon, what I love is this sense of dynamic, collaborative community that you have developed inside the organisation. There's a family here at Colliers, and this family is across all ages and across all functions, and all of you as employees have a sense of purpose and a sense that you really are valued for what you do. And this, I think, builds strong connections for you. And those connections combine with the employee experience, your skills, your expertise, and everything that helps you to work together with each other, to collaborate, to innovate, to cross-sell, to share clients, and all for the mutual benefit of both your customer base and also the employees. So very impressive. And also the other thing, of course, is your charitable activities with Colliers in the community. And all of that demonstrates to me, an outsider who knows of you very well, but you've never met me before. It demonstrates to me that you really are stronger together. You have a one-team community, and that sense that clients will want to trust is definitely there. So you might be thinking, well, what the hell is Henry doing here today? We're fine. And of course you are. You already have a very strong community. What really an organisation is like a garden. It needs to be tended. It needs to be supported. It needs attention. And so I'm here today to deliver a bit of that because the garden needs to continue to develop and to thrive. So this afternoon I'm going to look a little bit at generational diversity and also look at how you can continue to build and keep on strengthening even more the community that you have at Colliers that means that your clients will trust you. And we haven't even got past the first slide. Here we go. So, first of all, I want to talk to you about dates. Now, dates are very important to you, aren't they? Your CFO was just talking about, please don't give me information the day before the month or quarter end. I thought he was very good, actually. Do you hate me? Because I thought he was really good. So, dates are important, but also sell-by dates. So I have some questions for you. And this is an interactive session, so I'm hoping that you will play. Yes? Your body language went, oh no. So here's the first question. Have you ever looked at anybody, and put your hand up if you have you ever looked at anybody and thought, they're past their sell-by date? You're all a bunch of liars, that's all I'm saying. All right, here's another one. Put your hand up if you've ever felt that you might be past your sell-by date. That's definitely me. Okay, put your hand up if you never bother to look at sell-by dates, not even the ones on food and drink. Okay, so I'm playing with you, but dates are important because sometimes it's an unconscious bias that we have a sense of sell-by dates. So young people look at older people and think that they are how should we put this? Too much of a dinosaur. Or some older people can look at younger people and think they're too young to innovate or make a difference. So I'm going to show you a Skyfall video, and it's already been mentioned, hasn't it? So Skyfall is the movie where James Bond, meets Q for the first time. And what I want you to do is to watch this 40-second video and see, do you think that James Bond is past his sell-by date?
Always makes me feel a little melancholy. A grand old warship being ignominiously hauled away for scrap. The inevitability of time, don't you think? do you see?
A bloody big ship. Excuse me.
007. I'm your new quartermaster.
You must be joking.
Why, because I'm not wearing a lab coat?
Because you still have spots.
My complexion is hardly relevant.
Your competence is.
Age is no guarantee of efficiency.
And youth is no guarantee of innovation.
I'll hazard I can do more damage on my laptop sitting in my pyjamas before my first cup of Earl Grey than you can do in a year in the field.
Oh, so why do you need me?
Every now and then a trigger has to be pulled.
Or not pulled. It's hard to know which in your pyjamas. Q.
007.
Now, I'm going to be labelling some things, and in fact, when I work with people, I often say I'm going to label the hell out of things, but only in the room. So when we leave this room, we're not necessarily going to give anybody any labels. Deal? That's supposed to be yes, Henry? Yes. Yeah, at last, you are awake. So, the thing that's important to recognise is that James Bond is a Generation X, so he's in his 40s, early 50s. And Q, his new quartermaster, is a millennial, so he's in his 20s or perhaps early 30s. Now, Q definitely thinks that Bond is past his sell-by date, bit of a dinosaur. You know, why do you need me? Well, every now and again a trigger has to be pulled. But Bond thinks that Q is a bit too young. You've still got spots. So I think the interesting dynamic between them is that they both don't think much of one another, do they? But we know, if we watch the Skyfall movie, that they do need each other and that they turn out to be the dream team. So I could leave the stage right now and just say to you that every generation is important. Every generation has value. And every generation can work together to deliver the dream team. You're already doing that, so I'm just telling you things that you know. But it is important to look at the myths that we have, where young people look at older people and think, you're no good, you're past your sell-by date, and older people look at young people and go, you still have spots, you know, you're too young, you don't know, hard to know what to do when you're sitting in your pyjamas before your first cup of Earl Grey in front of your laptop, that sort of thing. So I just thought it was important to show you that. Now, this is a little bit about generational theory. Generational theory was set up by William Strauss and Neil Howe. They're American, they were consultants, and they met, bizarrely, over an interest in the Vietnam War. And they met in the 1980s when the Vietnam War was certainly taking a turn for the worse and ending up finishing quite soon after that. And what they discovered is that when they looked at the Vietnam War, that older generations wanted the war in the States. It was like, kill the bastards. Younger generations wanted peace, man, trade, travel. Those are the people that we now call baby boomers. And so Strauss and Howe got together and decided that they would look at what are the world events that mean that when different age groups are born every 10 or 20 years, that they're different and what makes them different. So very quickly, a whistle-stop tour. Let's see if you can see yourself in these generations here, because there are 4 generations in today's workforces globally. The oldest are baby boomers. And by the way, if you agree with these labels, you don't go into a different label as you age, you just get 1 year older. So next year, baby boomers are going to be 60 to 78, okay? So if you're a baby boomer, you were born 1946 to 1964, because there was a huge increase in birth rate between those years in nearly every country in the world. Not China, not the Middle East, not Africa, but most of the other countries. So between those years, that's why they're called baby boomers. By the way, did you know that in 2013 in the UK, there was an increase in birth rate for just 1 year in 2013. So what happened in 2012? Olympics, yeah. Apparently, if your team wins, you have unprotected sex. Who knew? But it's okay, because in the UK, we don't win very much, so the birth rate just went straight back down again the next year. It's never come up, I'll just say. So that's baby boomers. Now, the next generation was Generation X, and Strauss and Howe wanted to call them post-baby boomers, and then they read a book called Generation X. And Generation X was a book about how these particular people born 1965 to 1980 were feckless, work-shy, snowflakes who didn't respect authority. Is this ringing a bell? Have we not said this about every generation since time immemorial? So a bit unfair, but unfortunately the name stuck. So Generation X, if you're in your 40s to 50s, sorry, you're named after a book that trashes you. Sorry about that. So, born between 1965 and 1980, it's because the birth rate globally dropped like a stone, and it dropped for 3 reasons. One is because of contraception, so that became globally available. Second one was more women going into the workplace, yay. Third one was increase in divorce. So those three reasons meant that that generation was across a small number of years and the birth rate dropped like a stone. So in organisations, even though you have 28% of the people that you have in Colliers today, 28% of Generation X, they're actually one of the smallest groups because the others were bigger and still growing, but Generation X is smaller. But don't tell them they'll want a pay rise. Okay. But of course, the die was set. Media loved X, Y, Z, A, B, and so on. So the next generation, which Strauss and Howe wanted to call millennials, media called Generation Y. So when you see those two names, Generation Y and millennials, it's the same thing. And they run from 1981 to 1996. And the reason for that is that there were huge increases in technology. So Wi-Fi, laptops, World Wide Web, Adobe, JPEG, MP3s, all of those came out between 81 and 96. If you're a millennial, you're aged 27 to 42. And finally, Generation Z. They run from 1997 to 2009. What are the things that happened in 27 and 28, 2007, 2008? What was the big world event that happened? Financial crisis? Yeah, it happened, but that's not what I'm talking about. What really defines this generation is that in 2007, the first smartphone, working smartphone, was invented. And in 2008, the first app appeared. And this generation has lived through social media. They've never not known it. So that is what defines that generation. Okay, so if you can see yourself there, that's brilliant. Now, Strauss and Howe said, what is behind generational theory is world events. So you can see the world events like pandemics, invasion of Ukraine, Brexit, increase in prices. And these world events are war, famine, plague, economic, political change, technological advances. All of these are known as world events. And they have an impact on every age group. But depending on whether you're younger or older, it's a different impact. So we know that COVID is a world event. And the impact that it had is if you were over the age of 60, you were more likely to die. But in the lockdowns, you were fine, thank you, because you were earning more money and statistically lived in a better place. COVID, world event. But if you're young, you're least likely to die, but most likely to lose your job, your education, your career, your apprenticeship, your internship, and all of the rest. And also, lockdowns were hell for you because you were perched on the end of your bed trying to read your laptop on Zoom. See how the difference can be? The other thing is that some of these world events are known as accelerators. So COVID and technology are accelerators. Think about it. You all know about hybrid work now, don't you? And remote work. But prior to March 2020, only 5% of people in the UK and about 5% globally were working in any form of remote work. Apart from technology companies, that was about 30%. But even my biggest client, Cisco, 75,000 global workers, 63% of them up to March 2020 were working 3 to 5 days a week in an office. But the technology was already there for them to work remotely, and they just didn't choose to do so, even though they own WebEx. Then comes COVID, and you've got the technology, and suddenly everybody's working from home. So that's what the accelerators are. They impact all of us, but in a different way depending on our age. Okay, now, these are baby boomers, born 1946 to 1964. Very good work ethic, conscientious, organised, very well sorted out, great social and communication skills. Let's see what you know about them. I'm going to show you a statement. If it's true, put your hands up. If it's false, keep your hand down. And if you're not sure, give me jazz hands, okay? True, false, got no clue. Okay, you ready? Baby boomers can't use technology at work as well as younger generations. Is that true? Is that false? No idea. Oh, interesting. It's about half the room think it's true, about half think it's false. It's completely and utterly false. There is no research that shows that as we age, we cannot use technology. In fact, our brains have neuroplasticity. We can go on learning for our entire lives. In fact, when we get over the age of 55, thank God, because I'm coming up to 57, we get another piece of development in our brains. Oh yes, you of those who are under 40, you ain't got that yet, but I got it. And it's in the brain. And basically what it is it allows the brain to do better critical thinking, better focus, and better problem solving. Stitch that, you young people. So there is nothing that shows you that when we are older, we cannot use technology. But there's loads of research that says we don't. We become removed from technology often when we're older. And I'll just give you a clue. You know, you can tell we're older because we are using our phones with one finger. You can tell we're older because even though everything's on our smartphone, when we're older, we tend to print out everything and take it to the conference, and then maybe it'll be highlighted or even bound with some bits on it. We hate QR codes. And also, if you send us to one of those crazy car parks where you need to download an app, We're like, I'm sorry, what? That's definitely your baby boomers. Okay. Now, this is proof that baby boomers can continue to innovate and use technology. These are the winners of the 2019 Nobel Prize for Chemistry. Looks like three men going to a bar, doesn't it? So this is an American. He was 97 when he won. This is an Englishman, Stanley, was 77 when he won. And Akira Yoshino, Japanese, 71 when he won. They work in 3 different countries, but they work on the same thing. Now, you might think, yeah. They won it 40 years ago for who cares what. No, they won it for their research on lithium-ion batteries that are in everything from smartphones to pacemakers. And by the way, they're still working full-time. John Goodenough has just turned 100. So it's incredible what you can do. If you want to keep going, you can. You may not, of course, but you don't have to stop. Okay, now, let's look at this generation. This is Generation X. Remember the book that trashed you? It was called Generation X, about the feckless youth of today, back then. So Generation X look very much like baby boomers. Really good communication and social skills, pretty into technology as well because they were growing up with huge increases in technology at the time. Known as lone wolves because they had fewer brothers and sisters because the birth rate had dropped. Also known as latchkey kids because they were likely to have both parents working, so they needed to go home and let themselves in with their own key. So what do you know about Generation X? Let's see if we can test you. Again, if it's true, this statement I'm going to show you, raise your hand. Drop it if it's false. Jazz hands if you don't know. Here we go. Generation X, age 43 to 58, are the most stressed generation at work today. Is that true, false, or you got no idea? Oh, we got quite a lot of jazz hands. It's a toughie, isn't it? It's absolutely true. Statistically, Generation X, or if you're in mid-40s to mid-50s, they're the most squeezed and stressed generation we've got. Think about it. Above them, you've got lots of baby boomers at work, still going strong, although it's only 7% at Colliers, but it's usually quite high numbers, although we have lost a few from COVID and things like that. But just saying. So Generation X, they're squeezed with big numbers of people above them, big numbers of people below them at work. They're also squeezed at home, because they've got older relatives or people that they need to look after who are living longer but not necessarily healthier. And they're also squeezed at home between young children that just won't leave home. They just won't leave. So they are the most squeezed and they are the most stressed. Also, if you think about it, 50% of the directors at Colliers are in fact Generation X, and that's a normal statistic. About 50% of our global leaders across the world are in fact Gen Xers. So they've got more responsibility. Also, they have a tendency to have children, so they've got more responsibility and more cost because of that. So yes, of course, they're the most stressed. But they are interesting. I'm going to ask you a quick question. Hands up if you use Snapchat. Okay, we've got one down the front, I think one at the back. Now, the reason why I ask that is sometimes Gen X, 40s and 50s, use Snapchat, but it's only because your children have it. So Snapchat is a bit like WhatsApp. And what it is it's a technology that allows you to send videos and graphics and texts and photos and things like that. But it only lasts for a few short periods of time, and then it's gone forever. Now, I mean, who's that good for except for children or drug dealers? I'm just saying. But often Gen X do use it because of their kids. Hands up who uses WhatsApp. Look at the room. All of us use it. Now, that was once Snapchat. But because it's an interesting innovation that's useful to all of us, it doesn't matter what age we are, we all use it. Okay. So let's move on. Now, let's look at millennials. Millennials are born 1981 to 1996. Lots of differences and increases in technology there. And what we're seeing with millennials is that they look a bit like baby boomers and Generation X. They have the same kind of work ethic. They want to be organised. They care about their work. They're ambitious. But we're starting to see underdeveloped social and communication skills. And that's because they're spending their lives like that. They're all going to have bad necks later on. But this is what they're doing. Apart from that, they look pretty much the same. They're human like everybody else. They love, they laugh, they cry. They just have this interest in technology, particularly in their smart devices. So here's your statement. Is it true, false, or jazz hands? Millennials, aged 27 to 42, see money as the #1 driver for going after another job. That's stumped you. Yeah? You all think it's false? Oh, my goodness. It's absolutely true. Statistically, even before COVID hit, statistically, globally, money was the #1 reason for going after another job. By the way, if they got the job and they didn't like it, no money would make them stay, but it would make them go. Think about it. If you're a millennial, you're coming up 27 to 42, you are finding that everything is costing more money. Since 2007-2008 financial crash, in real terms, until last year, salaries were going down and costs were coming up. So millennials were really getting burned by that. So even though they love working for you, money is important. And your CFO did point out that your salaries had gone up, and you can see why. So the number one reason for going after a job is about money. Even if there are the number two reason, which is culture, and the number three reason, which is career development, number one is always money. Post-COVID, it's even worse because, of course, we're all struggling. But if you're a millennial, you may be in that particular age group when you really want to move on, you want to settle, you want to do things. Now millennials, aged 27 to 42, they're getting married later or not at all. They're having children later or not at all. They're leaving home later, or in my case with my kids, not at all. And they're buying a house later, or frankly, not at all. They are 15 years behind in wealth than baby boomers, and 10 years behind in Gen X when they were the same age. So think about it, it's not easy for them. Okay, now we're looking at Generation Z, or Zillennials, or iGen, they've got lots of names. And they are, how shall I sum them up? They're millennials on steroids. So everything that you've seen for millennials is absolutely true for Generation Z. And what's interesting for them is that although they're millennials on steroids, and although they have underdeveloped social and communication skills because they've grown up with social media, they are also the most entrepreneurial generation we've ever had. They want to innovate. They want to set up their own business. In fact, when I do research on this generation, what I discover is that whether a kid is rich or poor, black or white, blue or green, tall or whatever, Hindu or Catholic or whatever, they have exactly the same scores, which is 98% of them want to set up their own business. Of course, they think selling toys and DVDs and music is setting up their own business. It's not. It's a cottage industry, but they see that as setting up their own business. And if you ask them, well, why are you getting a job? They go, well, you know, I want a secure job and a career. And I say, yeah, but you're setting up your own business. And they don't see that actually those two things could be mutually exclusive. And that's tough for you as employers. What do you do about that? And I will give you some answers a little bit later. So, millennials, we've read about. Generation Z, we're just going to cover. What's interesting about them is that they do everything on their smartphone. It's their life. Education, navigation, entertainment, insights, absolutely everything. If they lose their phone, they'd be lost. Mind you, a lot of you look like if you lost your phone, you'd be lost. So you're obviously channeling your Generation Z here. But what's really interesting for them is that they have no interest in cash. They want everything to be on their smart wallet, on their smartphone. And that if you say to them, well, you've got to pay for your cab, like I had this morning, where the guy's credit card machine didn't work and I had to pay cash, a Gen Z would go, I'm sorry, what? What's cash? So there you are. Now, here's your statement for them. Generation Z, age 16 to 26, will naturally build a community in the workplace. Is that true or is that false? Some of you are saying true. Most people think it's false. It is absolutely false. Well done. You see, for Generation Z, they have a different view of community altogether. And this is a struggle for you because the more that you bring in young apprentices, graduates, interns, whatever, the more you'll find that this is the issue. They're entrepreneurial, but they want a career. They also want to have a community, but they find it hard to build with you. Let me explain. For all of us who are about 35 and older, we have two communities. The first community is our friends and family at home. The second community is the one in the workplace. But for Generation Z, first community, friends and family at home. Second community is where? Online. It's social media feed. And guess what? You're not in it. You're not in that community. So by the time they get to you, that third community, the stickiness isn't quite there. So it's much easier for them to leave you. They're not being disloyal. They're not even thinking about it. They didn't get brought up in the same way as you. They've got social media which runs their lives. They're hostages to it. And so, of course, they think differently. Now, here's what they think. First of all, they have a main community, not at work, but in their social media feed. Very important that you understand that, because their social media feed will influence them to do all sorts of things. Secondly, they discuss salary details in great detail. They share everything, and I mean everything. And then thirdly, they influence one another to stay or to leave in your company. So again, that's different, that lack of community. You've done nothing wrong, you've done everything right, but that lack of community is all about how they're growing up now. So that's a big difference. Right, let's remove labelling. I need my 3 volunteers. I have 3 beautiful volunteers who are going to come up. Round of applause, please, for these beautiful people. Now, these beautiful people are playing a role. What I want you to do, thank you so much. What I want you to do is I want you to just show your cards. That's it. Really, really young, getting on a bit, really, really old. You see, the thing is, if you take the labels away, you've still got the issue of age, haven't you? So if I'm really, really old, what happens to me is I look at someone who's really, really young, whatever age that is, and I go, you cannot possibly be my child's teacher. You can't be a policeman. I mean, look at you, you look about 12. And by the way, why is it we always say you can't be that person because you look about 12? I'm doing James Bond now with Q and going, you still have spots. So that's what we do. It's a completely natural thing to do. That's how we think about different age groups. So even if we take the labels away, even if the law says we can't look at ageism, we are ageist at both ends. And then, if I come up here, if I'm 4 years old, a 20-year-old looks old, right? If I'm 20-year-old, a 50-year-old looks old. That's how that works. But if I'm very, very young, I look at someone who's older and I go, why aren't you dead? I mean, you can't possibly have sex anymore. And as for culture and music and things like that, you know, you can't possibly do it. What's really interesting is that baby boomers actually officially invented youth culture. Of course, every single generation thinks that they did it first, but it wasn't. It was baby boomers. They were the first generation not to dress like their parents or grandparents. And they were the first generation who had different music and different forms of music and different forms of playing things. So they invented youth culture, stitched that Generation Z. So that's what's happening. And I'm sorry, I haven't even mentioned you yet. Getting on a bit. We could call this person Generation X, but if we take the label off, he knows, or they know, they're not old and they're not young. And in fact, they've noticed a couple of things, which is quite worrying. They've noticed that they've started to look at Marks and Spencer's clothes and think, oh, that looks quite nice. Yeah. It's not bad. It's new. And then the other thing they do is that when they bend down to pick something up, they go, oof. It's a noise that they weren't making before. They get in and out of cars and they go, oof. So, you know, that's happening. No longer young, but definitely not old. I'm making a joke about this, but what's really important is that if you bring these people together, sidle up to me, it doesn't really matter what age we are because we put everyone together and we've got two things. One is we've got over here structure, strategy, and stability. Over here, we've got innovation, novelty, variety, and change. So when we're very, very young, that's what we want. As we get older, we start to put a framework around things. We start to get responsibilities. We still need innovation, novelty, variety, and change, but we need to structure it, we need to support it, we need to make it work. That's why every generation is important. And that's why these three represent you as the dream team. Round of applause, they've finished their job. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I do like to play with you. Right. We're nearly there, and then you get a break, which I'm sure you're gagging for something to drink. Is there any alcohol? Just checking. Anyway, so what we've got here is what I call the human-centered culture model. Culture is everything. We all know that, but it's a weird word, isn't it? When somebody says we have a great culture here, actually, what the hell does that mean? And I thought I would try and explain what it means. It's what I call the 5 Cs. Now, here's my advice to you. We'll take all the labels away and we'll stop calling people by names like Gen Z, and I'll stop taking the mickey, well, at least until you get me a cocktail, and then it will start again. So here, we've got the 5 Cs. If you do all of these 5 Cs, you will create the culture that you want. You're probably already doing them, but maybe you didn't label them in this way. First one is community, and it's at the top because it's the most important. Everybody gets a sense of belonging. They get a sense of engagement and connection. Second one is collaboration, which again, you appear to be doing brilliantly well. You feel part of a team. You're working together for mutual benefit. Contribution, you feel like you're doing something that's making a difference and it's significant. Career, having a sense of progress and advancement, even in a flat structure. And finally, cause, that sense of purpose, that sense of meaning and direction, which gives everybody a chance to do it. Now, I know you're all really busy. I've been watching the videos and the presentations as you have, and I can see there's a lot riding on particularly the final quarter. But what I'm saying is, if you don't have community, you've got nothing. So the 5 Cs are very important, but community is the most important. And research has shown that it is the number one thing that you do. So you're doing the right things in building your community. And I've just got 3 slides left, and they're to tell you how to do a few bits and pieces more to maximize your community. So develop even more community with induction and onboarding that I know you're doing with your toolkit. And I want to say that induction and onboarding does 2 things. It celebrates the person having joined the team or the organisation, but also it shows what good looks like. And I think if you're really clear that it does A and B, it's going to be good induction. So there's a couple of things here. Celebrate whoever joins, making them feel special. It's the symbolism, so a goodie bag or a handwritten card or a video, or they get a buddy for the day, or somebody buys them lunch. Make them feel good, put their name up in lights. Symbolism is very important. If you can see my rings, I know they're very small. We were poor. So tiny rings, but the symbolism, they're not my marriage, but they symbolize it, because if they were my marriage, they'd need to be a hell of a lot bigger. I'm just saying. So, very important to have symbolism, because when people join an organization, induction is the first chance you get to give a really good first impression, and that starts to build stickiness, even in the youngest of your employees. Show what good looks like in your team. You seem to be doing that really well, but it is really important. And if things change, show what the new change good looks like. And personalize the first day. This is very important. The first day, I know people usually do cybersecurity, health and safety, you know, where the toilets are, how you get paid, but please, could you do that on day 2? Maybe day 1, just have a party. Just really celebrate the person's here, tell them what they're going to get, and then really talk about you. You are new to the organization. What do you bring? Start to bring in personalized activities either within your team or within your function, so that I want you to imagine that the newbies go home, no matter what age they are, and they go, this place is marvelous. I absolutely love it. I was made to feel like I was going to make a difference, like I had something to offer, rather than what induction often does, where we push all this information to you because you've got to tick the box. Just to bear that one in mind. Next one is develop more community with leader comms. And I've just got a couple of things here. You might be doing it. But here's a quick and easy one. You can ask 3 questions. And these questions are really important for every age group. You can ask them at any time, do a one-to-one or in a team. But the first question is, what's been happening to you, good or bad, since we last spoke? Whether this is virtual or face-to-face. Second question is, what have you learned from that? Because one of the most important things about creating a community is for people to be accountable and responsible for what's going on for them. So yeah, blah, this is what happened to me, good or bad. But yes, what did you learn from that? Very powerful. And the third one is, how are you going to take this learning forward now? So that's a really important leader thing that you can do. And it's easy to do, as I say, virtually or in person. And then the next one is really something that I think you're doing, but I'm sticking labels on it. I'm the label queen. This is creating rituals. So every change, every activity inside your organization is a transition. So you've got 4 points of transition which really make a difference. An elevation, where you do something that's unexpected, unpredicted, unusual, but positive. Pride, those are things like wins, awards, recognition, like you've been doing today, reaching goals, milestones. Connection, which I'm sure you do, someone's birthday, their anniversary, Christmas, the summer party, the Easter break. And finally, insights. Now, they can be aha moments like light bulbs, or they can be an insight like, that was the most painful thing that ever happened, but here's what I learned from it. I think if you physically and psychologically look for opportunities at least once a month with everybody who works for you, no matter what age they are, to do one of those 4, or even better, all 4, what you'll get is people who feel much more connected to you, and that builds stickiness. And by the way, you can do this with your clients as well. Don't tell them I showed you this, just do it, okay? Now, final one, you can develop even more community with aspirational activities. Every single one of these can be rotated. What we often do is we look at HR. Who's HR in the room? Yeah, can I just say officially I'm sorry? Because what often happens is I suggest these things and everybody comes to HR and go, you'll do it, right? No, I want all of you to do it. You're all responsible for this, and you should rotate in your team. So the CFO bloke, you too, and your team. You need to be rotating as well. I know what you like. So creating new team roles. Why don't you create new team roles? Make something up. I worked with an organisation that had customer service agents. The job after about 6 months is just pretty boring. Very important, but quite boring. And so they just created new team roles. They had a team of 20 people in the team, and they said, every 3 months, one of you will be a coach, one of you will be an innovator looking for innovations, small incremental innovations, and one of you will be like a team leader. Not the team leader, but take on some supervisory roles. And then 4 months later, or 3 months later, we will then switch them up, and then 3 more of you get to go. Incredibly good at building community and a sense of development and fun. And if you want to create new titles, come to me, I've got loads of them. Set up a physical and virtual innovation hub. You may already have this. If you haven't set it up, it's absolutely brilliant. And rotate people into it, of all ages and all functions, and rotate them out. It sounds like your Spark focus group was something like that. It's an innovation group. What about establishing a shadow board or a senior shadowing to the SLT? that can also be rotated into for membership and rotated out so that people get a chance. What about champions for product or services or process or relationship or well-being? Again, rotate it round. Don't just look at AR and have, look at HR and just have one person who's going to be your well-being champion. Each team could have a well-being champion. Also run topic surgeries and open surgeries. An open surgery would be either face-to-face or virtual, and you have somebody who runs it who says, you can ask me anything except about my sex life. Now, if that's too much for you, then set up a topic surgery, and that might be around compensation, it might be around holidays, it might be around innovations, whatever it might be. Those are good. Mentoring and reverse mentoring. Most organisations do mentoring, but reverse mentoring is taking younger, less experienced individuals and immediately having them mentor. Within 6 months of joining the organisation, they can enter the programme and they can reverse mentor somebody who's much older and or much more experienced. And finally, broken windows projects. That's based on the fact that in the past, as you all well know, a broken window or a very dirty, unkempt building is treated with a lack of respect. But organisations can have broken windows too, a relationship that doesn't work, a process that doesn't work. I mean, you've got Salesforce, I'm just saying. There's bits around there. I know. So if you've got broken windows there, you can set up projects either in your open surgeries or even in your innovation hub, which will help you do that. Okay, this is me done. I just wanted to say one last thing, which is you are stronger together. And all the things that you are doing are currently building a community, and it's absolutely amazing. I'm just offering you a few more tweaks. Don't worry about people's age. Try and do things, the 5 C's, which actually bring people together regardless of their age or shape or function, because we are human first, and then we are stuck with a label second. Ignore the labels and know that you are stronger together and your clients do trust you. Thank you.